Why do some people spend many years working hard and end up exactly where they started? Why do certain people change cities, change partners, change careers, and somehow keep ending up in the same kind of pain? Why does the calendar keep moving forward while the actual life inside it refuses to move with it? And why do some people watch others rise around them while quietly wondering what is wrong with them, even though they have done everything that was supposed to work? Here is the part nobody wants to say out loud. Most people who feel stuck are not lazy. They are not stupid. They are not weak. They are doing the best they can with a mind that has been quietly trained to keep them exactly where they are. The pain of being stuck is not the worst part. The worst part is the slow realization that no one is coming to pull you out. No teacher, no mentor, no future version of yourself. The door has always been there. The problem is that something inside has been holding it shut from the inside, and that something has no name in most people's vocabulary. Being stuck does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like a successful person who feels nothing when they look at their life. Sometimes it looks like a kind person who keeps attracting cruel people. Sometimes it looks like someone who is busy from morning to night, but cannot point to a single thing that has actually changed in 5 years. The shape of being stuck is rarely the same from one person to another, but the feeling underneath it is identical. Movement on the outside, silence on the inside, years passing with no internal record of them. Machiavelli observed something that almost nobody talks about today. He noticed that the men who rose in history were not always the most talented or the most fortunate. They were the ones who could see what other men could not. Specifically, they could see the invisible forces shaping their own behavior, the fears that looked like preferences, the wounds that looked like personality, the old beliefs that looked like wisdom. While other men lived inside these forces without noticing them, the rising men learned to step outside themselves and observe. That single skill, the ability to see one's own patterns, was the real difference between the men who moved and the men who stayed. This video is not going to give you motivation. Motivation is fuel, and fuel runs out within days. What you are about to receive is something more useful. You are about to be given language for things you have already been feeling but could not name. You are about to see the hidden architecture that has been silently building the walls of your life. And after watching this video, you will understand why the same year keeps repeating for so many people, even when they try to change, even when they want to change, even when they swear this year will be different, and then watch the year end exactly like the one before it. Some of what you hear will land uncomfortably. That discomfort is the signal that something inside you is being seen for the first time. Most people will resist that signal. Most people will click away the moment a truth touches a place they have been protecting. But a few will stay. And the few who stay are the only ones who will ever actually change. Before we begin, drop this statement in the comments. I am ready to see what was hidden. Now, let's begin. Number 1. The quiet collapse nobody talks about. Most people imagine that being stuck looks like an obvious failure. A person collapsing, a career falling apart, a relationship ending in flames. But that is rarely how being stuck actually presents itself. Being stuck is usually quieter than that, much quieter, and that is exactly what makes it so dangerous. The truth is, being stuck often hides inside a life that looks fine from the outside. A steady job, a working relationship, bills being paid, people assuming you are doing well. From a distance, the picture looks complete. But internally, something else is happening. A slow leak, a long, quiet drain, a sense that even though everything appears to be working, nothing is actually being built. The years are accumulating without becoming anything. This is the experience almost nobody warns you about. The version of being stuck where you cannot point to a single dramatic thing that is wrong. You wake up, you do the day, you go to sleep, you do it again. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet voice keeps whispering, "Is this really it?" The voice gets pushed down, it gets covered with distractions, it gets dismissed as ungratefulness. But the voice does not actually leave, it simply waits, and it grows louder during the quiet moments when nothing is left to drown it out. Imagine someone standing in front of a closed window for years. The room is comfortable, the temperature is fine, they can see the outside through the glass, but they cannot reach it. After enough time, the window becomes invisible to them. They forget it is even there. They stop reaching for it. They begin to believe that the room is all there is. The walls become normal. The outside becomes a memory. And the strangest part is, the window was never locked. It was always something they could open. They simply stopped trying so many times that the act of trying disappeared from their internal world. This is what being stuck actually looks like in most lives. Not a tragedy, a slow forgetting, a gradual narrowing, a quiet acceptance of a smaller life than the one a person was actually capable of living. And the longer this goes on, the more invisible it becomes, until even talking about it feels strange, because everyone around the person seems to be doing exactly the same thing. Machiavelli observed something that applies here perfectly. He noticed that the most dangerous threats to a man's life were not the obvious ones. The obvious threats could be seen and fought. The dangerous ones were the slow, invisible drains, the relationships that quietly weakened him, the habits that gently consumed him, the patterns that softly stole his years without him ever noticing the theft. The same is true inside the mind. The forces that keep most people stuck are not loud, they are not dramatic, they are the quietest forces of all, and that is exactly why so few people ever notice them. There is something that happens to a person who has been quietly stuck for years that almost nobody describes accurately. A kind of tiredness that sleep does not fix, a heaviness that has no specific source, a flatness that settles over things that used to feel exciting. The person is not depressed in the clinical sense. They are simply living inside a life that has stopped expanding. And a life that stops expanding does not stay the same. It quietly contracts. The interests narrow. The hopes shrink. The future becomes a copy of the present. The mind learns to stop reaching. If any of this is starting to feel familiar, do not look away from it. This recognition is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that you have finally caught a glimpse of something that has been operating in the background of your life for a long time. And catching that glimpse is the first thing that has to happen before anything else can change. Now, write in the comments, "I see the quiet collapse." Number 2. The invisible room you have been living in. There is a concept that almost nobody explains, but once you understand it, you will start seeing it in your own life and in the lives of everyone around you. Every person lives inside an invisible room. The walls of this room are not made of bricks, they are made of beliefs. Old beliefs. Beliefs that were planted in childhood. Beliefs that were reinforced by painful experiences. Beliefs that have been operating silently for so long that they no longer feel like beliefs. They feel like reality itself. This invisible room is the actual size of a person's life, not their potential, not their dreams. The room, whatever fits inside those walls, is what gets to happen. Whatever exists outside those walls feels impossible, unreachable, or not meant for them. Two people can have the same talent, the same opportunity, and the same starting point, and one will build a massive life while the other stays small forever. The difference is not the world. The difference is the room. Imagine a fish that has lived in a small bowl its entire life. If you placed it into the ocean, it would not suddenly start exploring the depths. For a long time it would continue swimming in the same small circle. The water around it would be infinite, but its movement would still be defined by the size of the bowl it remembered. The bowl was real once. Now it lives only in memory. But the memory shapes the swimming as surely as the bowl ever did. This is what happens to most people. Their early life created a particular size of room. That room may have been built by parents who treated them small, by environments that taught them not to expect much, by experiences that punished hope, by failures that became permanent identity. The room was real at some point, but for many people, the room is no longer real. Only the memory of the room remains, and the memory is shaping the movement just as completely as the original walls ever did. You can tell when someone is living inside an invisible room. They sabotage opportunities that would have changed their lives. They settle for less than they are capable of. They convince themselves they do not really want the bigger thing. They turn down chances that scare them and then feel sad about being stuck in the same place. They are not being foolish. They are being consistent with the room. The bigger thing did not fit, so it got rejected. Machiavelli understood that many men lived inside boundaries they had never tested. He noticed that what most people called impossible was simply unexplored. They had drawn lines inside their own minds and treated those lines as walls. The men who shaped history were not always more talented. They were the ones who pressed against the lines until they discovered the lines did not actually hold. The walls inside the mind are made of paper, but almost nobody tries to push them because everyone assumes the walls are made of stone. Here is the part that hurts to admit. The invisible room is comfortable, even when it is too small, even when it is choking the life out of someone. The walls are familiar, the size is known. The mind has already mapped the corners and made peace with them. To step outside the room means stepping into space that has no map. And the mind, which is built for survival rather than expansion, often prefers a comfortable cage to an uncomfortable freedom. The first step toward leaving the room is not about willpower, it is not about goals, it is not about discipline, it is about noticing the room exists at all. Most people do not even know they are inside one. They believe they are simply seeing reality. They do not realize they are seeing reality through a small window inside a very small room. The day they finally see the room is the day everything begins to change. Because once you see the room, you can never fully believe in it again. The walls become questions, the ceiling becomes a guess, and eventually the room itself starts to feel like a choice rather than a fact. This is the first quiet shift that has to happen. Not a transformation, not a breakthrough, just a noticing. A small, internal moment where a person looks around and realizes that what they thought was the world might actually be a room. And rooms, unlike worlds, can be left. Number 3. The weight you do not know you are carrying. Imagine walking around your entire life carrying a heavy bag, but no one has ever told you the bag exists. You feel tired. You wonder why. You assume something is wrong with your energy. You blame your sleep, your diet, your job, your age. You never think to check whether you have been carrying invisible weight that nobody mentioned at the door. This is one of the strangest facts about being human. Many people carry enormous emotional weight without realizing they are carrying anything at all. The weight is made of unprocessed pain, old experiences that were too overwhelming to fully feel at the time, small betrayals, quiet humiliations, words from people who were supposed to love you that landed wrong and never got addressed, disappointments that never received attention, losses that never fully got the grief they deserved. Each of these things, on its own, can be carried. But, carried together, over many years, they create a weight that quietly drains the person's ability to move forward. Here is the cruel part. Most people do not feel this weight as sadness. They feel it as exhaustion. They feel it as resistance whenever they try to start something new. They feel it as a strange heaviness that arrives the moment they try to take a real step toward a different life. They blame their motivation. They blame their discipline. They tell themselves they are weak. But the issue is not weakness. The issue is that they are trying to take a fast walk while carrying years of unprocessed weight, and no one ever told them the weight existed. Picture a swimmer trying to swim across a lake while wearing heavy clothes. The swimmer is strong, the swimmer is determined, but every stroke takes triple the effort. Eventually, the swimmer concludes that swimming is not for them, that they were not built for it. They give up, they walk away, they go home soaked and ashamed, but the truth was simple. They were strong enough, they were built for it. They just never took off the clothes, and nobody told them they could. This metaphor describes most stuck people exactly. They are not lacking in capacity. They are not lacking in desire. They are lacking awareness of the weight they have been carrying without realizing it. And the moment they begin to acknowledge that weight, something starts to shift. Not because the weight disappears, but because acknowledging weight changes a person's relationship to it. Hidden weight controls you. Acknowledged weight can finally be set down, piece by piece. Machiavelli observed that men were often defeated not by external enemies, but by their own internal burdens. The man who carried unprocessed shame moved differently than the man who had faced his shame. The man who carried buried anger reacted differently than the man who had named his anger. The man who carried old fear made decisions that the fear-free man would never have made. From the outside, these men looked the same. From the inside, they were operating with vastly different amounts of available strength. The carrying was invisible, the consequences were not. Look at your own life carefully. Where is the heaviness that has no obvious source? Where is the resistance that does not match the size of the task in front of you? Where is the strange tiredness that arrives every time you try to do something that matters? These are not signs of weakness, they are signs of weight. Weight you may have been carrying so long that you no longer recognize it as separate from yourself. The first step is not to throw it off. The first step is simply to notice it, to say, internally, "Oh, I have been carrying this. I did not know." That moment of noticing is small. It does not look like much, but it begins something that nothing else can begin. Once a person knows the weight exists, they can finally start the slow, patient work of putting it down. Not all at once, not dramatically, piece by piece, year by year. Until one day they look up and realize they are moving easier through life than they have in a very long time. Not because life got lighter, because they finally took off the clothes they had been swimming in. Now drop this affirmation in the comments. I set down what was never mine to carry. Number 4. The 4 silent forces that freeze a life. Now we move into the deepest layer of this entire video. There are 4 silent forces that keep most stuck people exactly where they are. These forces are not events. They are not circumstances. They are not external problems. They are quiet, invisible mechanisms that operate inside the mind, often without the person ever realizing they are running. The first force, the fear of your own potential. This one is rarely talked about, but it is real. Most people are not actually afraid of failing. They are afraid of succeeding, because failing keeps them inside the room they already know. Succeeding means becoming someone unfamiliar, a version of themselves that has not been built yet, a version that will be expected to keep delivering, a version whose old friends might no longer fit, a version that will carry new responsibilities, new attention, new pressure. The fear of potential disguises itself well. It looks like procrastination. It looks like overthinking. It looks like waiting for the right moment. It looks like the constant pursuit of more preparation that somehow never feels like enough. But underneath all of these, the real engine running the show is often a quiet terror of becoming someone whose life cannot fit back inside the old room. So the person sabotages just enough to stay safe. They do not fail spectacularly. They simply never quite arrive, and they wonder why every year ends in the same place. Machiavelli noticed this in men who could have ruled, but did not. They had the talent, they had the opportunity, but something inside them flinched at the threshold. They convinced themselves the time was not right. They withdrew at the last moment. They turned away from doors that were standing open. He understood that the world was not the obstacle for these men. They were the obstacle for themselves. The second force. Loyalty to an old identity. Every person carries an old picture of who they have always been. The shy one, the struggling one, the one who never finishes things, the one who is always the giver, the one who is broken. These identities are deeply familiar. They feel like home. And without realizing it, most people stay loyal to them, even when the old identity is killing the future version of themselves trying to be born. The loyalty operates quietly. Whenever a person starts to act differently, an internal voice rises up. That is not who you are. Stop pretending. Go back to what feels normal. The voice is not malicious. It is protective. It is trying to keep the person consistent with their known self. But the known self is exactly what is keeping the life small. Becoming someone new requires temporarily being inconsistent with the old self, and that inconsistency feels uncomfortable enough that most people retreat back into the familiar shape before any real change can take root. This is why so many people improve briefly and then return to where they started. The improvement was real, but it threatened the old identity. The old identity pulled them back. Not because the old identity was right, because the old identity was familiar, and familiarity, in the mind, often beats truth. The third force, addiction to a familiar emotional state. This one is hard to admit, but it explains more about stuck lives than almost any other factor. Many people have been living inside a particular emotional state for so long that their nervous system has become addicted to that state. The state could be anxiety, it could be sadness, it could be feeling overlooked, it could be feeling like a victim of unfair circumstances. The state feels bad, but it also feels normal. And normal, for the nervous system, becomes home. When a person tries to change their life in a way that would also change their emotional state, something strange happens. The nervous system pulls them back, not because the new state is wrong, but because the new state is unfamiliar. The body has not learned how to live there yet. So it interprets the new state as a threat and quietly nudges the person back into the old, familiar feeling. The person calls this self-sabotage. It is not really sabotage. It is the body trying to maintain the only emotional climate it has ever known. Machiavelli wrote, "That habit shaped a man's actions far more than reason ever could." He understood that men returned to familiar conditions even when those conditions were destroying them. The same is true emotionally. People return to the emotional weather they grew up in, no matter how miserable it makes them, because that weather is the only one they know how to live inside. The fourth force, the silent bargain with your pain. The fourth force is the deepest and the most uncomfortable. Many stuck people have made a silent, unconscious bargain with their pain. The bargain says, if I stay this way, I will not have to face the bigger fear underneath. If I stay broke, I do not have to risk discovering what would happen if I tried and failed. If I stay alone, I do not have to risk the heartbreak that comes with letting someone in. If I stay small, I do not have to face the responsibility of becoming what I could actually become. The pain becomes a strange kind of protection. It hurts, but it shields, and the person, without realizing it, begins to defend the pain. They reject solutions. They argue against hope. They find reasons why change is impossible for them specifically. They are not lying. From inside the bargain, the resistance feels logical. They do not see that they are protecting the very thing that is harming them, because the protection feels safer than the alternative. Breaking this bargain requires more than effort. It requires honesty about what the pain has been doing for the person, what it has been keeping them safe from, what they have been afraid to face. Once that honesty arrives, the bargain begins to weaken, not all at once, but enough that the door starts to feel possible to walk through. Now write this line in the comments. I released what was protecting me from growth. What happens when you finally see? Something quiet happens the moment a person finally sees the forces that have been running their life. They do not transform overnight. They do not break free in a dramatic moment. The real change is slower than that, and far more powerful in the long run. What comes first is an internal silence. The noise of confusion stops. For years, the person has been blaming the world, blaming people, blaming themselves in vague and exhausting ways. Once the real patterns become visible, the blaming falls away. The enemy was never out there. The work is internal now, and that single realization brings a strange peace the person has not felt in years. Then comes patience. The person who sees their patterns no longer expects to fix everything in a week. They understand the loops were built over decades, so they slow down. They stop chasing transformation. They start practicing awareness. Every time the old pattern tries to run, they catch it a little earlier. The wins begin to add up. Then comes the loneliness. This part is rarely mentioned. When someone begins to see clearly, the people around them often cannot see what they are seeing. The old friends still live inside their old rooms. The family still recycles the same loops. And the person who has woken up begins to feel a quiet distance from those they have always known. Not because they have become cold, because seeing is lonely until others catch up. Then comes the slow rebuilding. The person makes small, deliberate choices the old version of them would never have made. They speak when they used to stay silent. They walk away from situations that no longer fit. They pursue things that scare them. None of these choices look dramatic from the outside, but each one is a small vote for a different life. And over time, the votes add up. The room expands. The window finally opens. This is the part nobody warns you about. Real change is not loud. It does not look like the transformation videos online. It looks like a slightly different choice today than the one you would have made yesterday. Boring on the outside, revolutionary on the inside. Most people stay stuck their whole lives, not because they did not want change, not because they did not try, but because they never learned to see the forces operating beneath their conscious mind. They worked hard, they suffered, they reached for better, and better stayed out of reach because they were reaching from inside the room that was the problem. The fact that you stayed until this moment tells you something about yourself, something easy to miss but worth pausing on. You are not the kind of person who accepts the surface of things. Something in you has been quietly searching. That search is rare. Most people stop searching long before they find anything real. The fact that you kept searching is not a small thing. Now, write your final affirmation in the comments below. Make it a quiet promise to yourself, not a loud declaration to the world. I see what was hidden, and I will not look away. Speak it slowly. Mean it completely. Let tonight be the small, ordinary moment that something inside you finally begins to move. because the years will pass either way. The clock does not stop. The seasons do not wait. The only real question left is whether you will spend the next stretch of your life inside the same invisible room, or whether tonight, in this quiet and private moment, you choose to begin opening a window you have always been able to open. The window will not change the world for you, but it will let in enough light for you to finally see what you are working with. And from that light, slowly and patiently, everything else can finally begin to change.